Hello. Have you ever imagined that in the history of drug crime in Mexico, there could be a more dangerous and elusive figure than El Chapo Guzman? The main character in this video is a ruthless drug lord who remains untouchable. Operating from the shadows, he is believed to be even more dangerous than El Chapo Guzman and is a direct rival of Guzman in the battle for territory, responsible for the deaths of hundreds of innocent victims. For the USA Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, he is one of the most wanted criminals just after Mayo Zambada, FBI offering a $10 million reward for any information leading to his capture. His gang is heavily armed with firepower on par with the military. He has even shot down a military helicopter when they came to apprehend him. He is the leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, and goes by the alias El Mencho. This individual is considered by some authorities to be one of the most dangerous criminals in Mexico, coming from a background as ordinary as anyone else. El Mencho was born as Nemesio Ruben Oseguera Cervantes. Although some local legends say he was simply named Ruben, he decided to add the name Nemesio in honor of his beloved godfather. El Mencho is believed to have been born on July 17, 1966 in the village of Aguililla, Michoacan. Like many other drug lords, El Mencho grew up in an extremely poor family, and he and his 5 siblings spent their childhood farming, growing avocados, a common crop in the region. From a young age, El Mencho knew he was meant for greater things. He realized he had a knack for business and did not want to waste time in school, so he dropped out in the 5th grade to focus on growing avocados for a very powerful local family. However, no one could have predicted that this decision would change his life. It turns out that El Mencho's family was heavily involved in growing marijuana, and avocados were merely used to conceal the drugs during transportation. The Valencia family was thriving in the marijuana trade to the extent that they established a cartel named Milenio. With hectares of land dedicated to growing marijuana and opium, the Valencia family controlled the politics of the entire Michoacan region. Soon, they recognized El Mencho's loyalty and assigned him the crucial task of protecting their drug fields. A few years later, he sought a better life for himself and decided to immigrate illegally to California, USA. In the 1980s, to conceal his identity in the USA, he used multiple names and combinations such as Ruben Avila, Jose Lopez Prieto, Miguel Valadez, Carlos Hernandez Mendoza, Roberto Salgado, and others. In 1986, he was arrested by the San Francisco police at the age of 19 for theft and carrying a loaded gun. According to entry records, he crossed the USA-Mexico border several times in the late 1980s under different aliases. Mexican investigators believe that during this period, he was involved in the production and distribution of crystal meth in Redwood City. In 1989, he was arrested again in San Francisco for drug trafficking. He was deported to Mexico a few months later, but re-entered the USA and settled in San Francisco. In September 1992, he was arrested for federal drug offenses in Sacramento, California. According to court records, El Mencho and his brother Abraham went to a bar in San Francisco called Imperial to conduct a heroin transaction for $9,500. Abraham was in charge of the transaction, while El Mencho acted as the lookout. At the time, El Mencho, who was 26, was much younger than Abraham, but was smart enough to recognize that the deal could be a setup by the police. El Mencho told his brother that the people they were dealing with had paid with perfectly stacked dollar bills instead of loose change. By eavesdropping on a conversation, the police heard El Mencho warning his brother never to deal with them again, as they were undercover officers. 3 weeks later, both brothers were arrested by the police. In court, El Mencho insisted on his innocence, claiming he was not involved in the heroin trade, and that the undercover agents had lied about his drug activities. However, the prosecution maintained that both brothers were working together. El Mencho had only a few options left. If he did not plead guilty, his brother Abraham, who had a drug-related criminal record, could face a life sentence. His defense understood that if he opted for a jury trial, the chances of losing were very high, so he decided to plead guilty and protect his brother from a life sentence. In the end, he was sentenced to 5 years and was incarcerated at the Big Spring Correctional Center in Texas, which housed a large number of illegal immigrants. After 3 years, he was released from prison on parole and deported back to Mexico. At the age of 30 in Mexico, he joined the local police force of Cabo Corrientes and Tomatlan in Jalisco. You heard that right. A drug criminal could become a police officer in Mexico. Due to the dangerous nature and low pay of the job, so few people are willing to take it. In the first half of 2019, 235 police officers at the city, state, and federal levels in Mexico were killed, more than double compared to the same period in 2018. Here, El Mencho had a sweet reunion with his old bosses from the Milenio Cartel. After a while, he left the police force and joined organized crime as a full-time member of the Milenio Cartel to solidify his connections with the group. El Mencho married one of the sisters of the cartel leader, Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia. In this criminal group, El Mencho would become one of the most notorious drug lords in Mexico. When he first joined the Milenio Cartel, El Mencho was involved in a hit squad protecting drug lord Armando Valencia Cornelio, known as El Maradona. On August 12, 2003, his boss was arrested by Mexican authorities. Around the same time, the rival gang Los Zetas, with the support of the Gulf Cartel, launched an armed attack against the Milenio Cartel in Michoacán. The attack forced the Valencia family into exile in Jalisco. El Mencho moved to the cartel's capital, Guadalajara, along with his father-in-law, José Luis González Valencia, known as El Quini and Caballero Valencia. In Jalisco, El Mencho and the Milenio Cartel formed an alliance with the Sinaloa cartel faction, led by Ignacio Nacho Coronel, a high-ranking drug lord and ally of El Chapo Guzman. Under Coronel's guidance, El Mencho and his group managed the drug, financial, and murder operations of the Sinaloa cartel in Colima and Jalisco. On October 28, 2009, the highest-ranking leader of the Milenio Cartel, Oscar Orlando Nava Valencia, known as El Lobo, was arrested. 2 months later, Coronel was killed in a shootout with the Mexican military. Following their downfall, the Milenio Cartel disintegrated, leading to internal conflicts. The Milenio Cartel split into 2 factions. One, La Resistencia, aimed to continue as a subordinate of the Sinaloa cartel for profit, while the other, led by El Mencho and his associates, sought to become independent. El Mencho's view was that it was better to be a rooster's head than a cow's tail. Alliances were possible, but he would no longer be subordinate to anyone. The 2 sides began clashing for control of Jalisco state. Although El Mencho had a little formal education, but he was very savvy in using media to create an image of legitimacy, enhance his influence, and expand his power. He renamed the organization to Jalisco New Generation, CJNG. Whenever he captured members of rival gangs, he would record interrogation videos and post them on social media. The videos showed the detainees confessing their crimes and revealing which gang was backing them. He also made public statements condemning rival gangs, accusing them of kidnapping and extorting businessmen and civilians in Jalisco. When he killed the henchmen of rival gangs and discarded their bodies, he left behind notes saying, "We are the Jalisco generation dedicated to protecting our homeland, opposing kidnapping and extortion. As long as we are here, no one will oppress you." While CJNG did indeed commit these acts, but the deceptive propaganda successfully fooled many people, ultimately helping El Mencho to prevail and take control of the Jalisco cartel. At this time, his arch-nemesis was the Los Zetas cartel, which had split from the Gulf cartel to operate independently with a highly militarized, reckless team. Los Zetas were ruthless and fought on multiple fronts against both the Sinaloa cartel and other gangs for control of drug trafficking routes into the USA. At that time, El Mencho and CJNG were still relatively weak in defending themselves. He allied with the Sinaloa cartel and the Gulf cartel to counter Los Zetas and the Knights Templar cartel, which were trying to encroach on his territory. El Mencho's CJNG quickly grew in power, similar to how El Chapo had done. His rise was partly due to seizing opportunities. In the 1990s, major USA pharmaceutical companies led by Purdue Pharma invested heavily in infiltrating clinics and pharmacies to sell large quantities of oxycodone, fentanyl, and other synthetic opioid painkillers. These drugs were potent, highly addictive, and much cheaper than heroin, dominating the market and making the pharmaceutical companies rich. El Mencho saw an opportunity in fentanyl production, a relatively new field for Mexican drug lords. He not only traded traditional drugs but also imported large quantities of chemicals to synthesize fentanyl, disguising it as legitimate pain medication and smuggling it into the USA to compete with pharmaceutical companies without paying USA taxes, thus increasing his profits. El Mencho turned CJNG into one of the most profitable criminal organizations in Mexico. The government estimates the total assets of El Mencho's cartel to be around $50 billion. This success was also shared with Abigail Gonzalez Valencia, El Mencho's brother-in-law, who led a drug trafficking group called Los Queenies allied with CJNG. In October 2012, a key figure in Los Zetas, Heriberto Lascano, was killed by the Mexican military. After this event, Los Zetas gradually split into smaller factions. Although they continued to use the Z symbol, but they were no longer as powerful as before. CJNG took advantage of the reduced pressure and entered a period of explosive growth with over 100 drug production labs and control over many routes into the USA, generating nearly $15 billion in annual revenue. El Mencho himself accumulated assets worth around $1 billion. El Mencho combined the cunning of old drug cartels with the military might and brutality of newer quasi-military cartels like Los Zetas. On one hand, he bribed corrupt Mexican officials, while on the other hand, he recruited soldiers and bought large quantities of sophisticated weapons from the USA black market. He also placed significant emphasis on using social media to expand his influence and intimidate rival gangs. CJNG transitioned from a small criminal gang to one of the leading crime organizations in Mexico. Their operational strength is concentrated in 8 states: Jalisco, Colima, Guanajuato, Nayarit, and Veracruz, where they tightly control drug trafficking activities. They also operate in Morelos, Guerrero, and Michoacan, where they battle rival drug gangs. From 2014 to 2016, the only area where CJNG lost its presence was Mexico City. Internationally, CJNG is believed to have connections with criminal groups in the USA, other parts of Latin America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. As CJNG grew stronger, conflicts with the Sinaloa cartel emerged. The fragile alliance between the two quickly fell apart, and they began to clash. Despite numerous efforts, El Chapo was unable to stop El Mencho, leading to a series of escalating confrontations. By 2016, in Puerto Vallarta, when El Mencho ordered the kidnapping of 2 of El Chapo Guzman's sons, El Chapo had no choice but to concede and acknowledge CJNG's victory. Interestingly, El Mencho's drive was not for money but for power and complete control. In fact, El Mencho was not known for any mansions or eccentricities. He did not own luxury cars or jewelry, and his only interests were gambling and cockfighting. He was known to bet up to $100,000 on a single cockfight. El Mencho is famous for his secrecy, moving like a shadow, and never drawing attention with flamboyance. People recognized him more for his armored tank-like vehicles when he was in the city. El Mencho preferred to spend large sums on weapons and invest in his army, providing effective protection for himself and his family. Despite his simplicity, but El Mencho was a truly ruthless figure. He followed the philosophy of the notorious drug lord Pablo Escobar, which was that if officials did not accept bribes for favors, he would kill them. El Mencho is implicated in the death of Michoacan's Secretary of Public Security, Martin Godoy Castro, in a plane crash in 2019. El Mencho's ruthlessness was not just talk, he employed extremely brutal methods to eliminate his enemies. He often used fire, ordered beheadings, and recorded videos to broadcast them as if he were a terrorist group. He even dipped victims into acid baths to dissolve their bodies while they were still alive. USA authorities have stated that since 2018, El Mencho's cartel has surpassed El Chapo Guzman's cartel in drug trafficking and has been elevated higher on their priority list. According to these reports, both the Mexican and USA governments have invested millions of dollars in resources to attempt to capture and eliminate El Mencho, but so far, no one has succeeded. On August 25, 2012, a unit of the Mexican Federal Police based in Tonaya, Jalisco, responded to an anonymous tip about an organized crime group operating in a nearby rural community. When security forces arrived in the area, a gunfight erupted between the two sides, resulting in the deaths of 6 CJNG gunmen. Initial reports indicated that El Mencho had been captured during the operation, but the Mexican government later confirmed that he was not detained. Other reports suggest that USA authorities had alerted the Mexican government based on their surveillance of El Mencho's girlfriend, who was involved in methamphetamine trafficking in Gulfport, Mississippi. In a series of closely coordinated tactics to prevent El Mencho's capture, CJNG blocked several highways and roads across the Guadalajara metropolitan area by setting fire to at least 37 vehicles. The purpose of burning the vehicles was to create obstacles, hinder security forces from moving through Jalisco's capital, and give El Mencho enough time to escape. Obstacles were placed on strategic routes to prevent police reinforcements from entering or leaving Guadalajara. After the attacks ended, the government confirmed that El Mencho was in the area and had managed to escape. On March 19, 2015 in Ocotlan, Jalisco, CJNG gunmen ambushed a federal police convoy. The attack resulted in a total of 11 deaths, including 5 police officers, 3 civilians, and 3 CJNG gunmen. This attack was a response by CJNG to protect El Mencho, who was believed to be in the area. On March 23rd, Heriberto Acevedo Cardenas alias El Gringo, one of El Mencho's close associates, was killed in a shootout with federal police in Zacualco de Torres, Jalisco. Sources reported that Acevedo Cardenas had directed CJNG groups in Zacualco, Tlajomulco, Cocula, Tapalpa, Atemajac de Brizuela, and other areas. In response, El Mencho commanded CJNG to carry out attacks on Mexican federal police. On March 30th, CJNG gunmen ambushed a convoy carrying Alejandro Solorio Archiga, Jalisco's security commissioner. Fortunately, no one was killed in this shootout. However, on April 6th, CJNG gunmen blocked a road in San Sebastian del Oeste, Jalisco, using a burning vehicle and opened fire on a convoy of Jalisco State Police, killing 15 officers and injuring 55 others. This was the deadliest attack on Mexican police forces since 2010. On the same day, Miguel Angel Caicedo Vargas, the Zacualco de Torres police chief, was killed by CJNG hitmen. A month later, on May 1st, 2015, the Mexican government launched Operation Jalisco, a military-led campaign against organized crime groups in Jalisco and aimed at capturing their leaders. The announcement followed a series of violent attacks by CJNG in the preceding weeks. On the day the campaign was launched, intelligence reports indicated that El Mencho was in Tonaya, prompting an assault to capture him. As security forces moved into the area where El Mencho was believed to be hiding, a gunfight broke out between law enforcement officials and CJNG gunmen in the small town of Villa Purificación, Jalisco. El Mencho's forces shot down a Mexican military helicopter with a rocket-propelled grenade, killing 9 soldiers. The battle spread across several cities in Jalisco. El Mencho's forces blockaded several roads throughout the Guadalajara area to slow the mobilization of military and police forces, allowing their leader to escape. CJNG set fire to 39 buses, 11 banks, and 16 gas stations, with the attack spreading across 20 different towns and 3 neighboring states. The Mexican government believed El Mencho might be hiding in Jalisco, CJNG's stronghold. They thought he was not staying in one place for long and was moving through various cities in Jalisco, Michoacan, Colima, and Nayarit. He often traversed mountainous and rural terrain, as these areas offered numerous escape routes in case security forces attempted to encircle him. In 2020, the government arrested Ruben Oseguera Gonzalez, alias El Menchito, El Mencho's son, who was quickly extradited to the USA. During the hearing, El Mencho's daughter, Jessica Johanna Oseguera, was also arrested and sentenced to 36 months in prison for drug trafficking. These arrests undoubtedly hurt El Mencho and were seen as desperate attempts by the government to attract the attention of the biggest drug lord. In 2021, when El Mencho's wife, Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia, was arrested, it was discovered that she was the CFO of CJNG. Despite the significant losses and challenges faced by the cartel, they continued to grow robustly. CJNG now controls 28 out of the country's 32 states and has expanded its presence to Europe and Asia. El Mencho has a reward of $10 million from the USA and 30 million pesos from Mexico for information leading to his capture. Strangely, since then, he has vanished from the public eye. Despite many of the cartel's leaders being captured or killed, El Mencho has yet to surface, leading to ongoing speculation about his death. However, neither side has confirmed this, and the cartel's daily operations show no signs of abnormal activity. Influenced by CJNG, many Mexican drug cartels are increasingly adopting militaristic approaches. Unless the issues of corruption and poverty are thoroughly addressed, Mexico's fight against drug trafficking may never see the light at the end of the tunnel. The main character in this story is a drug dealer with one of the highest IQs in the world, a poor young man from Shanghai. At the age of 27, he ventured to Mexico, a place halfway across the globe from his homeland. 10 years later, he became the largest supplier of drug manufacturing materials in Latin America, earning $14 million a day and becoming a billionaire. He was a key member of the Sinaloa cartel, the world's largest drug trafficking organization, dubbed the leader of the Western Hemisphere. He was a close friend of the President of Mexico, an honorary senator of the Mexican Congress, and a VIP at Las Vegas casinos. The Mexican police described him as a typical drug dealer with superior intelligence in the Mexican drug trafficking world. He was known by the nickname Chinese Star, Zhenli Yegon. Zhenli Yegon was born in 1963 in a slum near the Shijiao Hotel in Shanghai. Unfortunately, he was not the son of high-ranking officials as rumored, but came from a humble family. He grew up near the luxurious life of Shanghai's wealthy and felt envious of them from a young age. He quickly understood the common saying among the people of Shanghai: fortune comes from danger, success comes from the game. To succeed, one not only needs to be careful, but also must be willing to take risks. Little did anyone know that this understanding would later be entirely applied to his criminal path. At the age of 20, with his innate intelligence, he was admitted to the East China University of Political Science and Law. His favorite subjects were law and English. The complex legal rules that others found difficult, he could grasp with ease. The English-Chinese dictionary that others didn't want to open was something he always carried with him to improve his English skills. He became pen pals with 3 international friends, one in Turkey, one in Korea, and a girl in Mexico. At that time, pen paling was the most romantic way for young people to connect. After graduating from the East China University of Political Science and Law, he worked as a salesman for a pharmaceutical company that made cold medicine, but after a few years, he had not achieved anything significant. During that time, the trend of going abroad was very popular, so young people with the means wanted to go abroad to broaden their horizons. He, disillusioned with his current life, also wanted to go abroad. He desired to go to the USA the most, but instead, he received an opportunity that others had passed up: Mexico, and perhaps this was fate. In 1990, at the age of 27, Zhenli traveled to Mexico alone. Every day, he took his business cards to hospitals and pharmacies to promote Chinese-made cold medicine. However, at that time, made in China, products had just begun to appear, and Mexicans rarely heard of Chinese products. They were accustomed to using European and American pharmaceuticals and medical devices, which left Zhenli disappointed in the domestic cold medicine. Yet after a few years of experience abroad, he became familiar with the trade rules between the two countries and developed the idea of starting his own foreign trade business. In Mexico, he met Yu Ziyi, a Chinese-Mexican woman. This girlfriend soon became his lover and then his wife. With his wife's help, Zhenli abandoned his job selling cold medicine and began a business selling clothing and other small items. However, the result was a loss of most of his savings, and just then his wife became pregnant, pushing Zhenli's life into a difficult situation. In the past, Mexico was merely a corridor for drugs flowing from South America into the USA. However, due to corruption and poor management, this country became a place for drug cultivation in the 1990s. At this time, Zhenli suddenly noticed the rapidly growing drug trade in Mexico, and the Shanghai proverb, "Fortune comes from danger," echoed in his mind. Zhenli wondered if there was any tycoon who had achieved a billion-dollar fortune without using illegal tricks and remained completely clean. This thought eventually led him to take a gamble. Zhenli held a dark secret about cold medicine containing ephedrine and pseudoephedrine, substances that have excellent effects in relaxing smooth bronchial muscles and are widely used in cold medicines and cough syrups. The secret is that with a not too complicated chemical process, ephedrine and pseudoephedrine can be transformed into methamphetamine, a synthetic drug commonly known as crystal meth. Zhenli knew that as a foreigner with no roots in Mexico, if he directly produced drugs, he would be destroyed by both the authorities and the underworld. So he wisely avoided the production and retailing of drugs, instead choosing to supply the rare ingredients needed for drug manufacturing. With more than 10 years of experience in the pharmaceutical industry, he knew exactly how to go about this. China, the main producer of ephedrine and pseudoephedrine, became Zhenli's supply source. He established the United Pharmaceuticals Company in Mexico and began importing large quantities of ephedrine and finished cold medicine products from China into the Mexican market, earning his first big money. Although the volume of goods was increasing for Zhenli, it was just enough to live comfortably, but it still wasn't enough to make him wealthy, like the people he had envied as a child. Zhenli strictly adhered to the business principles of the Chinese community, ensuring quality, quantity, and on-time delivery, gradually building his reputation in Mexico. One day, Zhenli unexpectedly received a notice that a customer wanted to meet him. The signature read, Guzman. Yes, it was Guzman, Mexico's #1 drug lord, known as El Chapo. At that time, Guzman was just over 30 years old and had two major ambitions. First, he wanted to become the boss of the Sinaloa cartel in Mexico, because he was currently only the third in command. Second, he wanted to lead Sinaloa to become the face of Mexico's drug industry, to move beyond just being a middleman, and to surpass Colombia to become the world's #1 drug empire. However, due to Mexico's geographic location, it wasn't suitable for growing coca plants and thus couldn't produce cocaine. The only drug that could be produced was marijuana, but this was despised in the industry as child's play. To achieve his grand goals, Guzman targeted a new drug that the Colombians looked down upon, methamphetamine. However, he hadn't yet mastered the production technique and often failed. In 1999, Chinese police busted an extremely large pure crystal meth case, making Liu Xiaohua, China's #1 methamphetamine producer, famous worldwide. Guzman immediately sent people to China to find Liu Xiaohua, but his subordinates only brought back 2 jars of Laoganma chili sauce, as gifts knowing that their boss loved spicy food. This might sound humorous, but it was true. Guzman tried the sauce and found it delicious, even going so far as to produce a Mexican version of Laoganma chili sauce, keeping the original name. Of course, the main purpose was to find a way to hide drugs in these jars of chili sauce for transport to the USA and India. Failing to locate Liu Xiaohua left Guzman extremely frustrated. At that moment, his subordinates provided information about another Chinese man, Zhenli Yegon. Zhenli was a supplier of ephedrine, a key ingredient for drug manufacturing, with a good reputation in the Mexican business community, though he had yet to achieve significant success. On a dark night, the two met. Zhenli said, "I only supply quality goods and don't get involved in anything else." Guzman replied, "Coincidentally, I only need quality goods. Anyone who gets involved in anything else will die." Thus, the two quickly agreed to work together. From that first meeting, within 5 years, Guzman became the world's #1 drug trafficker, realizing his personal ambitions, while Zhenli became the world's most intelligent supplier of drug-making ingredients, earning $14 million a day. He had become as wealthy as the people he once envied as a child. With his genius, Zhenli revolutionized the traditional method of extracting ephedrine and pseudoephedrine from plants, shifting to chemical synthesis to increase the supply capacity. This completely changed the landscape of drug ingredient supply worldwide. This led to a boom in ephedrine-based drugs for the Sinaloa cartel, gradually dominating the North American market. Moreover, before Zhenli's involvement, ephedrine and pseudoephedrine were mainly used to produce methamphetamine, but after he joined, these substances began to spread to other drugs like MDMA and THC, contributing to massive criminal activity. According to investigations between 2005 and 2006 alone, Zhenli imported 96 tons of ephedrine or pseudoephedrine from China under the guise of cold medicine production. Oddly enough, these 96 tons came with full import documentation, but only the customs declarations from China could be traced, with no records of shipments in Mexico. Mexican police speculate that the shipments were likely seized by Mexican drug gangs en route and needed to be laundered before use. Thus, Zhenli Yegan went to Las Vegas, where he spent hundreds of millions of dollars in a single night betting on both sides at prestigious casinos. With just about 5% of the wager amount as a fee, he could completely launder the dirty money and then transfer it through banks to Hong Kong, Mexico, and other places in the USA. To maintain a good relationship with this high roller, the casino even gifted him a Rolls-Royce. The reason he chose casinos to launder money was that casinos are the final stop that law enforcement agencies worldwide monitor to recover money. The fact that banks helped Latin American drug traffickers launder money to earn fees has also been verified, with the USA Senate conducting investigations into this issue. After obtaining clean money, Zhenli bought a large villa next to the presidential palace in Mexico City and returned to his hometown in Shanghai, purchasing Villa Number 16 on Gong Road for what was rumored to be hundreds of millions yuan. He also employed networking strategies in both China and Mexico to deftly manage relationships, nearly bribing the entire Mexican government. Through investments, he even secured the honorary position of senator in the Mexican Congress and the opportunity to obtain Mexican citizenship. Mexico's then president Vicente Fox even personally attended his citizenship ceremony, demonstrating their close relationship. Fluent in the ways of officials, commerce, and the underworld, Zhenli gradually became famous in Mexico. Although he later became the core supplier for the Sinaloa drug cartel, Zhenli always considered himself a businessman, not a drug dealer. Of course, this was merely his way of deceiving himself to seek psychological comfort. Some Mexican officials believed Zhenli's words, but others did not, such as Felipe Calderón, who was elected the youngest president in Mexican history in 2006. Immediately after taking office, Calderón launched a war on drugs, and Zhenli, a foreigner without strong backing, became the first sacrificial lamb in this campaign. In 2007, Zhenli's mansion was seized along with the largest amount of dirty money in the history of the global war on drugs, $205 million. Among the confiscated items were cash wrapped in Las Vegas casino packaging, a white tiger, 28 luxury cars, 200,000 euros, and 18 million Mexican pesos. However, they did not catch Zhenli. The Mexican police issued a global red notice through Interpol. After receiving a request for investigative assistance from Interpol, Chinese police quickly searched Villa No. 16 on Gong Road in Shanghai and thoroughly investigated companies that had business transactions with Zhenli's Mexican pharmaceutical company. The investigation revealed that Zhenli had indeed imported pseudoephedrine from several factories in China and shipped it to Mexico, but he had not violated any Chinese laws. All licenses and certificates met legal requirements, and all production and transportation activities involving pseudoephedrine from the factories were legal. A few months later, Zhenli Yegan and his family were arrested at a Chinese restaurant in the USA. Zhenli denied all drug trafficking charges and agreed to an interview with the Associated Press, where he claimed that the money found in his home was dirty money from the election campaign that Mexican drug lords had donated to Calderón. He further claimed that Mexico's health minister, Lozano Alarcón, had forced him to hold on to the money with the threat, cooperate or die. Zhenli also asserted that the amount of money in his house was not just $205 million, but $270 million, along with countless pieces of jewelry, famous paintings and antiques, all of which had been seized by the Mexican government. Zhenli's detailed testimony sent shockwaves around the world, causing many to question the transparency of the Mexican government, especially in a context of rampant corruption. In Mexico, the public even tended to view drug traffickers as Robin Hood figures, heroes of the poor, rather than trust government officials. Zhenli's phrase, "cooperate or die," quickly became a popular catchphrase in Mexico, even being printed on car decals that sold well. The Mexican government, of course, denied all accusations and countered by calling Zhenli a USA spy sent to overthrow the Mexican government, further amplifying his notoriety. This war of words dragged on for 9 years, but Zhenli was eventually extradited back to Mexico and imprisoned in the Altiplano high-security prison, infamous for the escape of drug lord Guzman through a tunnel. Zhenli faced more than 10 charges, including manufacturing and trafficking drugs and possessing illegal weapons. While some might think Calderon was a positive figure in the fight against drugs, the reality was different. He had promised to use the more than $200 million confiscated from Zhenli to build over 300 rehabilitation centers nationwide, but to this day, these centers have yet to materialize. In 2018, the new President López Obrador admitted that even he did not know where the enormous sum of money was, further fueling suspicions that the money was indeed from drug lords for Calderon, and that Zhenli's asset seizure was merely a means to reclaim Calderon's share. The new president, López Obrador, was not resigned. In 2019, he publicly auctioned off Zhenli's mansion, selling it for over $5 million. At times, he said the money would be used to contribute to the national budget, and at other times, he declared it would be used to fund Mexican athletes participating in the Pan American Games. Ultimately, the money was divided among 3 government departments in Mexico. However, whether López's claim of not knowing where the $200 million went is true or not remains an unanswered question. It's noteworthy that in 2006, when Calderon became the youngest president in Mexican history, his electoral opponent, López Obrador, lost by a mere 0.56% margin. López at that time refused to recognize the election results, accused Calderon of voter fraud, and incited public protests, but eventually had to accept defeat. This might explain why López used the Zhenli case to launch an attack on Calderon. After returning to Mexico, Zhenli did not give up. He continuously appealed and meticulously studied Mexican law, hoping to find a loophole that could get him out of prison. Legal research was one of his strengths. Surprisingly, after López took office in 2018, all drug-related charges against Zhenli were dropped, leaving only the charge of illegal possession of firearms. Notably, according to Mexican media reports, on August 17, 2020, Zhenli Yegon contracted the coronavirus while in Altiplano prison, a heavily guarded facility. He is currently being held in isolation, and all legal proceedings against him have been suspended. This news surprised many, as no one expected a place like that to experience an outbreak. As of September 2020, it's unclear whether Zhenli had recovered, but he claimed that he was not provided with proper sanitary conditions in prison and was subjected to inhumane physical and mental torture. Zhenli stated that he was harassed, threatened, mistreated, and isolated, making his life in prison extremely miserable. He had repeatedly filed petitions with Mexico's 7th Court, requesting to be transferred to another prison, but all were denied. Many believe this might be the way life is making Zhenli pay for the crimes he committed. He once thought he was clever, but in the end, life adheres to the law of karma. Those who commit crimes will pay for them, or their loved ones will bear the consequences. Recent news indicates that Zhenli's wife, Yu Ji was sentenced to 15 years in prison on March 30th, 2021. His cousin Ye Yongqing was also sentenced to 25 years. This has led many to wonder if Zhenli himself will be the next to face a heavy sentence. Looking back at the life of Zhenli, one of the smartest figures in the drug trade, it's clear that everything began with the cold medicine that once left him disappointed and sad. It was this very cold medicine that allowed him to build a brilliant career, but it was also what led him down a path of crime, ending his life in a dark prison. There is a name that can instantly cause 1.3 billion Indians to feel a chill of fear. The mastermind behind the two serial bombings in Mumbai in 1993 and 2008. This man has consistently topped India's most wanted list and is the financial backer behind numerous terrorist organizations such as Bin Laden's, the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and Boko Haram. He is India's #1 enemy, whom Prime Minister Modi promised to eliminate when he ran for office. He possesses a fortune valued at $6.7 billion, second only to the world's top drug lord Colombian Pablo Escobar in the global drug trade. The D Company, which he founded, is the largest drug trafficking syndicate in India, the largest terrorist organization in South Asia, the largest transnational criminal gang in India, and the biggest threat to the security order of the South Asian subcontinent. His name appears on the top wanted lists of the United Nations Security Council, Interpol, and the FBI. On Forbes' list of the most powerful people in 2010, he ranked 57th. On Time magazine's 2011 list of the top 10 gang leaders, he was ranked 9th, and on the FBI's list of the top 10 most wanted criminals in 2011, he ranked 3rd. He is none other than Dawood Ibrahim, India's #1 drug lord, Bollywood star hunter, the nightmare of India's national security system, and a thorn in the side of Prime Minister Modi. Contrary to the image of a drug kingpin, Dawood Ibrahim's family background is entirely different, as no one would expect that he is the son of a police officer. His father was a policeman in the Mumbai Police Department, but Mumbai, the very city he repeatedly bombed, is the homeland of his childhood, where he was born and raised. What kind of shock could have turned the son of a policeman into the biggest drug lord and terrorist of a nation? What could have made him hate his hometown so much that he wanted to destroy it? In 1955, Dawood was born in a Muslim slum in Mumbai Dongri, a poor and chaotic place, completely different from the luxurious Mumbai dominated by Hindus. From a young age, Dawood was a devout Muslim and disliked people of other faiths in central Mumbai. Although Dongri was only as large as 2 football fields, it had a tradition of violence among drug trafficking and smuggling gangs since India gained independence and established a Soviet-style model after World War II. The black market in Dongri was where gangs in Mumbai circumvented the government's strict economic policies. The 2 biggest gang leaders in Mumbai at that time, Haji Mastan and Karim Lala, emerged from here. Dawood, the son of a policeman, had a father who was a local policeman in Mumbai. However, Dawood's father was not a good, dedicated officer serving the people and satisfied with a meager salary. In the Mumbai police community, his father was considered the patriarch of corruption, bribery, trapping criminals, and colluding with them. Some even said that his father was the biggest mafia boss in Mumbai at the time. In such a polluted family atmosphere and living environment, Dawood learned the traditional skills of the criminal world from a young age, such as robbery, fraud, and theft. He dropped out of high school to enter the criminal path, and he quickly demonstrated his talent in organizing and managing illegal activities. However, he had one fatal flaw: an extremely hot temper. He could not tolerate any anger or slight, always seeking revenge and easily flying into a rage. What he hated most was anyone being stronger than him. If someone appeared to surpass him, he would become furious and find a way to eliminate that person. At the age of 18, Dawood founded a local gang named D Company, using the first letter of his name for the gang's name. He engaged in illegal activities such as drug trafficking, smuggling, and kidnapping in the city of Mumbai. In 1974, at the age of 19, Dawood carried out a bold act by robbing a shipment belonging to Haji, the Mumbai gang leader who was also his senior, seizing $200,000 in cash, which sent shockwaves through Mumbai. The Mumbai police chief agreed with the fight fire with fire strategy proposed by Dawood's father, quietly encouraging him to continue attacking Haji, though in reality, the chief had accepted a bribe from Dawood's father. With the covert support of the police, young Dawood no longer had any worries. He seemed to be empowered, wildly hunting down Haji and his subordinates, and even personally killing another Mumbai gang leader, Karim Lala. This bloody gang war lasted for 7 years. One cold rainy night in 1981, Dawood and his brother Shabir were surrounded by Haji at a gas station owned by a friend in Mumbai. To save Dawood, his brother set fire to the gas station. In the intense flames and explosion, his brother perished along with Haji, while Dawood miraculously survived by hiding in a secret underground tunnel. After Dawood eliminated these two major crime bosses, no one could restrict the development of D Company any longer. From Bollywood to the Indian stock market, from horse racing to football leagues, any business sector that could generate significant profits had Dawood's hand in it. He built a drug manufacturing plant in the suburbs, nearly monopolizing the drug market in Mumbai. D Company also financed the production of many films and invited famous actors like Anil Kapoor to participate. After killing two Bollywood film producers who refused to cooperate, no one in the Indian entertainment industry dared to defy Dawood anymore. Even the famous Bollywood actress Mandakini became his lover. The prolonged war between the drug gangs caused great suffering for the people of Mumbai. Under enormous public pressure, the police finally realized that Dawood's father's fight fire with fire strategy was a mistake, as it had allowed criminals to wreak havoc. They immediately declared Dawood a murderer, issued a nationwide manhunt, and fired his father. At this point, Dawood had fled to Dubai to seek refuge. In the following years, he made enormous profits by remotely running D Company's drug trafficking, gold smuggling, and silver trading operations in Mumbai. In Dubai, Dawood also controlled a money transfer system quite popular in the Middle East, known as the Hawala system, colloquially referred to as the money laundering system. Many criminal organizations and extremist groups use this system to transfer money, and Dawood earned huge transaction fees from it. After significant growth in the 1980s, D Company quickly became India's largest conglomerate in drug trafficking, prostitution, gambling, smuggling, and counterfeiting with over 5,000 members. By the early 1990s, the company's annual revenue had reached hundreds of millions of rupees. After making his fortune, Dawood began purchasing numerous mansions and investing heavily in real estate in the Middle East and India. He named all his mansions the same because he was extremely fascinated by the culture of USA presidents, seeing himself as the president of India's underground economy. As Dawood and D Company were at the height of their power, irreversible changes began to unfold quietly. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, a series of international upheavals occurred, including the collapse of Eastern Europe, the Gulf War, and the ongoing oil crisis. The sudden shift in the external environment caused the centrally planned economy model, which India had followed since its founding, to fall into crisis. The public's demand for economic reform grew louder. In 1991, the winds of reform swept through India, opening up many industries that had previously been tightly controlled. Japanese televisions, Chinese radios, and American computers flooded Indian streets. This caused the black market in Dongri, which had been controlled by gangs, to become an open economic sector where anyone could conduct legal business overnight. D Company lost many of its revenue sources, and overnight Dawood faced severe losses, which infuriated him and had serious consequences. The Mumbai police seized this opportunity to launch a vigorous attack on D Company. Whenever they encountered someone from D Company, they would open fire indiscriminately, then place weapons next to the bodies to create a fake shootout scene and blame the victims for firing first. This angered Dawood more than ever, and the Mumbai police ended up on his revenge list. D Company members began shooting on the streets, and the police retaliated, causing numerous casualties among the police force. Such a crime scene, with criminals shooting at the police, had never been seen in Indian history. In 1991, while it was the first year of economic reform for India, for Mumbai, it marked the beginning of a major battle between the police and criminals. At that time, Mumbai was also called the Sicily of India. In 1992, Indian Hindu extremists forcibly demolished the 464-year-old Babri Masjid Mosque in the holy city of Ayodhya, causing large-scale riots and resulting in over 2,000 deaths. This religious conflict created an ethnic scar, continuing the divide between India and Pakistan since 1947. The new enmity added to old grievances, making Dawood angry once again. This time, the city of Mumbai, with its Hindu majority, fell onto his revenge list. Dawood Ibrahim believed that his homeland had been occupied by outsiders, and he was determined to reclaim it. On the afternoon of March 12, 1993, 13 bombs exploded in quick succession in the bustling city of Mumbai, spreading fire and explosions throughout the city. In the blink of an eye, locations such as the Mumbai Police Headquarters, the Bombay Stock Exchange, the Air India Headquarters, Bollywood Plaza Cinema, and the offices of various right-wing and Hindu parties were bombed. Mumbai was engulfed in a bloody terror inferno with 257 dead and 1,400 injured. This was the 1993 Mumbai bombings, which shocked the world and was considered the first major terrorist attack on a large city since India's independence. After this event, Dawood's D Company was no longer just a drug gang using violence to protect its business power. It had become a terrorist organization, attacking indiscriminately to vent its political anger, and became the biggest threat to the security of the South Asian subcontinent. Due to this bombing, Dawood was also placed on the highest wanted lists of the United Nations Security Council, Interpol, the FBI, and the Central Bureau of Investigation of India. However, Dawood vanished from the world, and no one knew where he was hiding. According to declassified documents at the time of the explosions, he was sitting in Dubai, commanding remotely. He then traveled through several Gulf countries fearing arrest due to extradition treaties with India. Eventually, he secretly escaped from Dubai to Karachi, the capital of Pakistan, India's archenemy, and was ready to use it as a political pawn to ensure his safety. To this day, there have been no reports of him leaving there, and of course the Pakistani authorities cannot acknowledge this. According to reports from a brave Pakistani journalist, Dawood lived in Pakistan like a king, wearing Patek Philippe watches, dressing in custom-made clothes, and enjoying life in several luxurious villas with swimming pools, tennis courts, and high-tech gyms. Records from the USA Department of the Treasury during his time in Pakistan show that Dawood used dirty money from drug trafficking and smuggling to fund Lashkar-e-Taiba in Kashmir, an armed group determined to reclaim Kashmir from India, as well as to support the Taliban and Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. Dawood also sent money to the Boko Haram insurgent group in Nigeria and was escorted by the Taliban to Afghanistan to meet Osama bin Laden, who was even elusive to the USA at that time. This indicates that terrorist organizations surviving in remote forests and mountains rely on people like Dawood for funding. Moreover, Dawood freely shared the secret drug trafficking and smuggling routes built by D Company over many years, setting the stage for subsequent terrorist crimes. In 2008, members of Lashkar-e-Taiba again attacked Mumbai with bombs, including the infamous hostage crisis at the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel. This was considered the largest terrorist attack in India's history and became known as the 2008 Mumbai attacks. According to foreign sources, these terrorists, along with the weapons and bombs they used, were secretly transported into Mumbai by Dawood Ibrahim through D Company's smuggling routes. He also provided all the logistics for this operation. The event outraged India, leading to a comprehensive ban on D Company, and the government offered a $25 million reward and mobilized all investigative forces to capture Dawood, but was unsuccessful. According to the Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI, India's highest investigative authority, Dawood possesses 13 fake IDs, making it extremely difficult to find any clues. In the 2014 Indian elections, BJP's prime ministerial candidate, Narendra Modi, declared to the media that if elected, he would definitely bring Dawood Ibrahim back to India for trial. He promised not to follow the weak approach of previous governments, but to adopt a tough stance, similar to how the USA dealt with Osama bin Laden. However, after Modi's election, he stopped mentioning Dawood's capture, let alone any specific plans to carry it out. 10 years have passed from 2014 to 2024, and nothing has happened. Dawood is likely still hiding in Pakistan, with the most recent news being the arrest of one of Dawood's trusted accountants, who served as the CFO of D Company in the UK. The USA wanted to extradite him, but Pakistani diplomats strongly opposed it. This incident highlights the complex political game behind Dawood. He remains free and well off in Pakistan. Dawood has also resumed his old role of sponsoring actresses. According to Indian media, the famous Pakistani actress Mehwish Hayat, born in 1988, was sponsored by Dawood. Their relationship was close, and she became a box office queen with several hit films in Pakistan, and was awarded the Tamga-e-Imtiaz in 2019, similar to a National Excellence Award. This award is rarely given to the entertainment industry and women, and Indian media speculates that Dawood lobbied behind the scenes, though the details are unclear. This younger actress, 27 years younger than Dawood, has undoubtedly become his biggest weakness. Rumors suggest that Dawood is very angry about Indian media digging into his affairs and is investigating how this information was leaked. With his vengeful nature, it is uncertain what might happen. After 2008, D Company did not collapse under pressure, but instead continued to grow robustly in drug trafficking and cricket betting. By bribing and threatening players and umpires, they control the outcomes of 2/3 of cricket matches. D Company also expanded its drug trafficking operations to Europe and the UK, becoming internationalized. Today, revenue from India only accounts for 40% of D Company's total revenue. A Pakistani journalist has reported that Dawood's current life is like something out of Mario Puzo's classic mafia novel, The Godfather. However, Dawood himself finds it very boring and often reminisces about his youth in Mumbai, where he began his journey to becoming India's top drug lord. Everything has consequences, and the retribution for evil often comes from within. The net of justice may be wide but hard to escape. How long can Dawood avoid the law? This is the story of a crime boss who has operated in the underground world for a long time. A man living a luxurious life, traveling the globe, attending the most extravagant sports events, and he even managed to get a photo with the Dutch king and queen, who had no idea about his true identity. In the photo, he wears a beaming smile, but if you cross him, that smile will quickly disappear and you might find yourself fearing for your life. This is the story of Piet Wortel. Piet Wortel, a 54-year-old Dutch man of Surinamese descent, born in Alphen aan den Rijn, Netherlands, had successfully managed to stay under the radar for a long time. Very few people knew about his past, his childhood, or what had shaped him into the person he is today. In 2014, Piet was sentenced to 7 years in prison for large-scale drug trafficking in the Netherlands. The police had arrested him on April 3, 2012. That evening, Piet was sitting in one of the most expensive skyboxes at Camp Nou, watching the match between FC Barcelona and AC Milan. The arrest was part of Operation Tidor, an investigation into a shipment of 1,100 kilograms of drugs intercepted at the port of Rotterdam. After a thorough investigation, the police discovered additional shipments potentially linked to Piet from South America to Hong Kong, Cape Verde, and the Netherlands, all of which were successful and yielded enormous profits. A notable detail is that during the investigation, the police had secretly placed a microphone in his airplane seat, hoping to gather crucial information. Before his arrest, Piet lived a glamorous life, traveling the world with his associates, staying in the most luxurious hotels, spending lavishly on designer clothes, and purchasing VIP tickets for the biggest sports events. Notably, he managed to secure tickets for the 2010 World Cup final, where the Netherlands faced Spain, a match that most Dutch people remember with disappointment. After the game, Piet and his team persuaded staff to allow them into the stadium's catacombs, and who did they meet there? It was Crown Prince Willem-Alexander and Crown Princess Maxima Zorregieta, now the King and Queen of the Netherlands. Piet quickly requested a photo with the King and Queen, and he succeeded in getting it. The Dutch royal couple had no idea they had just posed with a criminal mastermind and his associates. Piet proudly flaunted this photo to his criminal friends, which infuriated the Dutch law enforcement agencies who had been tracking him for a long time. But by then, it was too late. The damage had been done. When the 7-year prison sentence was handed down in 2014, Piet had already served 2 years, and he was expected to be released in 2019. In 2016, Piet was granted conditional release with an ankle monitor. He exploited this opportunity to escape and flee to Suriname, where he has not returned to the Netherlands, and for years, no one has heard from him. In July 2019, Piet was reported to have coordinated a massive 400 kilograms drug shipment through his network from Suriname to the port of Rotterdam. This was not the first time the network had operated, and previous shipments had yielded enormous profits. Now, Piet decided to execute a major deal: 400 kilograms of drugs. He tasked a group of his operatives to handle the cargo upon its arrival in Rotterdam and distribute it according to plan. These individuals include Roy Harry, Romeo Donk, Kelvin Maynard, and Jensciel Feller, all of whom are Dutch nationals of Surinamese descent with connections to the southeast Amsterdam area. Pay attention to these names as their story is about to take some surprising turns. According to the plan, the shipment was to be transported from Suriname to Rotterdam, and all signs pointed to its success just like previous ones. However, the shipment suddenly disappeared, without a trace. Or perhaps that was the information relayed to Piet. The shipment was seized, and no gram of drugs was found according to the people responsible for its transportation. This might seem like a reasonable explanation, but suspicion grew when those connected to the shipment suddenly appeared flaunting wealth and living extravagantly. The uproar immediately erupted in southeast Amsterdam. In the underground world, a missing shipment is synonymous with immediate trouble. Rumors spread like wildfire, trust among gangs was shattered, and revenge seemed inevitable. Piet felt he had been cheated out of a 400-kilogram shipment, and what happened next truly caused a stir. He was reportedly declared that anyone benefiting from this scam, whether just €1 or millions, would pay dearly. And soon, Piet's fury began to unfold. On the night of August 3rd to the early morning of August 4th, 2019, Jensciel Feller, one of the individuals tasked with retrieving the cargo from the container, was ambushed and shot severely while on Dokkumlaan in Almere, where he lived with his girlfriend. When he was taken to the hospital, doctors found he had been shot 3 times, despite his severe injuries, but Jensciel survived the attack. The mayor of Almere then ordered him not to live at his girlfriend's home. For his safety, Jensciel decided to flee to Curaçao right after the incident, hoping to find a safe hiding place. Unfortunately, things did not go as hoped. In Curaçao, Jensciel led a completely reclusive life. He always sat in the back seat of a white Hyundai with the windows covered, never appearing in public. Despite his efforts to remain hidden, those he tried to avoid still managed to find him. Around 10 a.m. on September 2nd, 2019, Jensciel was sitting in the back seat of a white Hyundai. A video captured the car parked in front of a restaurant named Libanese. When the driver had just left the vehicle, 2 armed men suddenly charged and fired directly through the back window. Jensciel had no chance to defend himself. After attempting to escape to a country nearly 8,000 kilometers away, his enemies found him and took him down. On September 17, 2019, an emergency call brought Surinamese police to the scene of a burning vehicle. When inspecting the car, investigators found several pieces of the license plate. After analyzing these fragments, they summoned the car's owner to the police station. The following day, Roy Harry's brother appeared at the station and shockingly informed the police that he had lent Roy his car 2 days earlier and had not been able to contact his brother since. According to him, contact was cut off right after the police discovered the burning car. At the police station, Roy's brother immediately reported Roy's disappearance. Just a few days after receiving the report from Roy's brother, Surinamese police received another missing person report. Romeo Donk's family came to the station to report that Romeo had disappeared without a trace since September 17th. They mentioned there had been no news from Romeo, which was very unusual for him. The police suspected that the 2 cases were closely linked because both Roy and Romeo had been in the Netherlands a week before they went missing and had returned to Suriname together. Roy's family stated they had never heard of Romeo and questioned whether there was any connection between the two. Back in the Netherlands, Around 8:35 p.m. on September 18, 2019, Kelvin Maynard was sitting in his car, waiting for the traffic light to turn green. He had just had an important meeting with some men. However, as Kelvin was leaving, he was unaware that he was being followed by two men on a motorcycle. To his surprise, these two strangers stopped right next to his car window. Before Kelvin could react, he was shot multiple times. Despite his severe injuries, Kelvin tried to drive away at high speed to escape, but eventually crashed into a fire station. Firefighters did their best to save him, but it was too late. In just a few months, 4 men connected to the drug shipment had either been assassinated or gone missing. Could this really be just coincidence? Think about it. Although the Netherlands was witnessing significant upheaval and incidents, business continued. By late April 2020, a massive shipment of 4,100 kilograms had arrived at the port of Antwerp with a street value of over 200 million euros. The cargo was concealed among fish crates and was transferred to a warehouse after docking. The Belgian Federal Police got wind of the shipment and organized a large-scale operation to apprehend those involved. After raiding the warehouse near the port, police arrested 9 men as they were distributing the 4,100 kilogram shipment, and they also launched operations to arrest additional suspects in Antwerp. Most of the arrested suspects were from the southeast Amsterdam area. Through investigation, the police suspected that Piet Vortel and Bolle Joos were connected to this shipment. Following the turmoil in Amsterdam after the 400 kilogram shipment's disappearance, Dutch police anticipated a storm of incidents once again due to the current shipment being 10 times larger. However, unexpectedly, the situation remained relatively calm. By late February 2022, the Fugitive Active Search Team Netherlands received crucial information that Piet was on his way to Aruba. On March 3, 2022, Piet left Suriname and landed in Aruba. As soon as he touched down, he was arrested by Aruba police working closely with the Fugitive Active Search Team Netherlands. Shortly afterward, Piet was extradited to the Netherlands, and the manhunt continued. On October 11, 2022, a major shock hit the Dutch newspapers. Piet was arrested at a house in Almere, completely out of the blue and unexpected. After being extradited from Aruba, Piet served his sentence in the Netherlands and was released under the condition of wearing an ankle monitor. In the early hours of October 11th, a major raid took place. Police searched 7 houses, a hotel room, and an office across 4 different cities. Every nook and cranny was thoroughly examined for evidence. Piet was arrested on charges of drug trafficking and his possible involvement in the murders of Jenciel Feller and Kelvin Maynard. However, an even bigger shock came from a trial against footballer Quincy Promes, who was accused of being involved in drug trafficking. During the trial, Piet's name unexpectedly surfaced. In January 2023, prosecutors alleged that Quincy had paid a fine of up to 250,000 euros to Piet due to his involvement in the stolen shipment. According to the police criminal intelligence team, Quincy did this to settle a debt with Piet. However, Quincy vehemently denied this and was shocked by the accusations. Quincy asserted that it was completely absurd. His lawyer Robert Malowitz also stated, "My client does not even know Mr. Piet. They have never had any contact or calls with each other." Although Quincy's phone number was in Piet's contact list, but Piet denied knowing Quincy, insisting there had been no communication between them. For years, Piet was considered a key figure in the smuggling world, but after his arrest in October 2022, prosecutors have continually struggled to charge him with any offenses. They also failed to establish a direct link between Piet and the events related to the stolen shipment. Piet's lawyer has asserted his innocence, and Piet himself claimed that he had been held for months without just cause. By mid-March, the lawyer requested his immediate release and succeeded in getting Piet out of prison on March 29, 2023. This time, Piet was not facing old charges, but a new and harsh accusation: money laundering. From January 1st, 2018 to October 10th, 2022, Piet was suspected of laundering millions of euros from criminal activities. This move was clearly a decisive attempt to prevent Piet from having the opportunity to be free, while also allowing authorities more time to search for additional evidence and continue prosecuting him. In July 2023, rumors spread that Piet might be hiding millions of dollars worth of gold in his villa in Suriname based on some blurry photos. However, the reality proved that no gold bars were ever found. The police stated they found nothing because Piet had been warned about the raid and had managed to move all the gold bars out of the villa in time. Piet argued that the gold was sold to Suriname's vice president, Ronnie Brunswick, and that none of it belonged to him. If any, then it was insignificant. During the raid, the police also discovered some classified documents raising suspicions about a potential traitor within their ranks. Concerned about a traitor in their organization, the Suriname police felt this could be evidence of Piet's power and influence. As of July 2023, Romeo and Roy are still missing and have been unaccounted for to this day. With nearly 85% of Suriname being tropical rainforest, making someone disappear is not an impossible feat. Piet has had a tumultuous life and nearly escaped the clutches of the law. However, he is still in custody while Dutch prosecutors are doing everything in their power to keep him behind bars. Currently, the situation seems more favorable to Piet than to the prosecutors. If there are any significant developments, I will update you immediately. What do you think about this story? Leave your thoughts in the comments below so everyone can see. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support me. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.